Last year, Holy Cross sent a team of 7 volunteers on a mission trip to Cambodia. And now we're planning to do it again next year. So in February of next year, we are going on a mission trip to Cambodia. So right now, we're looking to build out our team. Last Sunday, Holy Cross held a Cambodia Informational Meeting, and we recorded it because we understand that a lot of people couldn't attend it. The meeting is for anyone who is interested in joining us actually in Cambodia or supporting us from here in the States. So we recorded it, and now we are putting it up here online. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments section. We'll try to monitor it and respond as quickly as we can. And if you are interested in coming with us to Cambodia, feel free to email us. We'll have contact information in the description. Thank you.
Well, welcome everybody. So I know Pastor gave the announcement to grab some papers. We have a few different things. There is a commitment form, so we wanted to share that with you. If you're interested in joining, to fill that out. You can return to anybody on the mission committee, or you can leave it with Linda in the church office, and she'll make sure the mission committee gets it. We are looking for a team of 7 to 8 people, and we'll dive a bit more into that as we go through. A couple other things to note within the papers that we have over there. We have a pamphlet or brochure of information about Cambodia, things to know about packing, like tips and tricks of currency and documentation that you'll need, like your passport and visas and things like that. So all that's kind of like outlined in this informational brochure. It also has a QR code and the website link, because we did create a page on the church website. So if you go to Holy Cross website, there's /Cambodia. You'll see a lot of this information there as well. And then the last two documents, the larger of the two, is kind of a sample or draft budget and schedule from last year's trip, so you can kind of get an idea of the breakdown of costs. This does not include the airfare. That is a separate item. But the overall trip cost that we've kind of identified within the brochure is about $2,400, and that is inclusive of that airfare. Another thing to note with that budget number is that was for the whole team, not an individual person. So when you see that figure at the bottom, that's inclusive of the whole trip for all of the team that went last year. But it gives you an idea of where the budget's allocated and what it goes towards. So with that, we're going to go through our slideshow here, and we do have a section at the end for questions and answers. We really encourage anybody, if you have any questions, if there's something that sparks your brain that you see during the slides, feel free to ask your question then. But we do have some time at the end reserved for that as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about Cambodia itself, so like the climate, the geography. Then we also have what we did last year, the overview of the upcoming trip, and then we also included ways to serve if you want to go on the trip, or if you want to stay at home but you want to help the team in some way. We included that information as well. All right, I'm going to let you do.
All right, so we're going to cover pretty much just some general information about Cambodia. Cambodia is a country located in Southeast Asia, right between Vietnam and Thailand. And the people there, it's written out like Khmer, but it's pronounced Khmer. So you can call them Cambodian or you can call them Khmer. They prefer to be called Khmer. We are right there where all the little things are. Cambodia is all the way over here, little tiny guy over there. And then that's a more zoomed in view. The hearts are where we went last time. So we went there, and up to the top. So you see we get around. The climate there, it's a tropical savanna climate. Temperatures range from about 75 to 97 degrees Fahrenheit. February is generally dry with low humidity. Google said it was similar to Miami, but without the water and all the neon lights. When we went last time, it was abnormally hot and humid. So the people here who went last time, they know that. But it hopefully won't be this time. And now we're going to cover some of their history just very briefly because it's important and it really shapes who they are today. The Khmer Rouge was their dictatorial regime in the 70s, from 1975 to 1979. They were a communist regime. And the regime, their leader, Pol Pot, was still at large until 1998, though, even though he didn't control the whole country. But the regime was responsible for a genocide of an estimated 2 million Cambodians through execution, forced labor, starvation within only those 4 years, which was a quarter of their population at the time. So a lot of the people, like the places that we went, some places were built by the Khmer Rouge, and people still remember it today. There's a lot of people who lived through it still. But we're not going to focus on that too much, but we point it out because it is an important part of their history.
There's actually quite a few historically accurate movies out there too, so if you really want to learn more, highly recommend
And they have 16.59 million people, so they're on the up. 95% of Cambodia is Buddhist, 2% is Christian, and about 2% is Muslim and other. And then they have a small non-religious part, but that's the pie chart. So it is pretty much entirely Buddhist. We're definitely the minority when we go over there. But despite that, they are very welcoming and open, and so we don't get any backlash for going over there as Christians or anything like that. So now we're going to cover what we did last time. So we start out with JP Sima. He is our missionary partner there in Cambodia. He and his family have been living in Southeast Asia for over 17 years now. They spent roughly 10 years in Vietnam before moving to Cambodia in 2018. And he works there with the Cambodian Lutheran Church, the Luther Institute of Cambodia, and more. But we worked with him last time. We're going to be working with him again this time. And yes, we were his first mission there because of COVID. And then he's had, I think, 1 or 2 since then. And when we go over there, we don't just spend the whole time doing VBSs and going to church. We go over there and we actually connect with the people there. We go to youth groups. We went to church. Well, we do more than just go to church and go to VBS. So it is a full experience and a trip. So we started out by going to JP's house for a youth group and for a dinner. Here we are all in his living room. And then we went to a local Cambodian church where Pastor Sima is their pastor, one of their pastors. And then we have the main part of the trip, the VBS, which we're going to go over here, and we're assuming that we're going to do a VBS again when we go back, which is why we're covering this. We did a 2-day VBS in the village of Chuk with about 80 kids per session over 2 days, so we had 160 kids in total because they would come back for the second day. We would use crafts and different games to teach the kids the lessons. So the first day we taught the lesson of the shepherd and the lost sheep, then the mustard seed of faith. We used a lot of crafts and stuff for that. And then obviously we have the activities. We made friendship bracelets, did tie-dye butterflies, made pipe cleaner animals. We played steal the bacon, that's what we call it here. There they call it steal the leaf, so we had a bit of translation error there. And then we did another VBS, a mini one, just one day, over in another city, Siem Reap, which that had quite a few kids, but not quite as many. And we did a second mini VBS, which was in a much smaller church attached to the pastor's house there. And when we weren't doing VBSs, we were exploring Cambodia with our new friends and just seeing everything that Cambodia has to offer. So like here we went to a lake, Lake Malake, which they've built up around. And one of the things that shows their history is still living today is this is an entirely man-made lake made from the Khmer Rouge, which was made through forced labor. So they have a lot of bad memories of it, but they've been able to build up a nice tourist area for themselves. Well, activities, they have boats, and so they enjoy it, and they've made their history a good thing. And then We went to a lot of markets, and the markets sell anything from trinkets to crafts and a lot of food.
Automobile parts. You want to build your own bike?
Yeah, had some of those. And then we also went to Angkor Wat, which is the largest religious building in the world. The main building of Angkor Wat was built in the 11th century, but around it is the whole Angkor complex, which has over 900 temples in total. And it's the most important archaeological site in Southeast Asia. The whole complex is approximately 400 kilometers squared. It's comprised of forests, temple remains, and temples built between the 9th and 15th century. And it became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1992. Here's the main Angkor Wat. We went there for a sunrise service, and then we went and toured it around. What? Not service. What? We went to see the sunrise there. And then we went and saw another temple, a few more temples after that. Now we're going to cover the things you need to know for the upcoming trip.
So the next trip, we are looking at kind of the same time frame as the first trip, which is President's Week of 2026. We're estimating probably about February 12th to the 22nd. Dates will be finalized with the confirmed team for next year, but that's roughly the time frame that we were at in Cambodia last year. Roughly the same trip cost as what we're estimating right now, which is $2,400. That does include transportation, airfare, lodging, food. One of the nice things about, in ground transportation, yes. One of the nice things about the way we orchestrated it last year was that JP SEMA and us, we worked together on putting that budget together. And when we went, we had sent all the money ahead of time, so that then everything was being purchased, or like when we had group meals, he covered kind of the costs and kind of tallied that up to make sure that we were staying on budget. And so you weren't sitting at a meal where everyone had to sit there and dig out the exact change for each meal. It was all kind of encompassed into one, so it made traveling a little bit easier. The ground transportation, we do have a private bus that comes with a driver. They drove us to all the different locations. It wasn't a public system, it was all privatized. I would say the cost of that is, I want to say it was about $1,000 all inclusive, and that covered the entire time we were there. I mean, we saw the bus driver every day. We invited him to our meal times, but he always kind of kept his distance to some extent. But JP did say that he was really impressed with our group because we were willing to try the food and the cuisine and learn about the history, and he's not seen that with other tourist groups from other countries that are in the same boat as us. So it was a nice and refreshing thing to see. And then, let's see, we talked cost, when, and then, and documents. So you do need a passport because this is out of the country. One of the interesting things too was going through the visa process. It's actually a lot easier than I thought it would be. It was the first time I've ever applied for a visa. You just go in with your passport number, you go onto the website, you fill in the paperwork, and then they email you a couple weeks later. And I would say it was probably the easiest process ever. We did have a layover in Vietnam, and we looked into, with how long our layover was, maybe we go explore. But Vietnam has a 3-month process to get a visa, where Cambodia was only a couple weeks. So it was a very different setup. So needless to say, we hung out in the Vietnam airport for about 12 hours before we continued on. And so that's one of our lessons learned for this next trip, is to not have such a long layover. You want to go to the next slide, Jake? Oh, and vaccinations. Each person on our team, we all met with our doctors and got recommendations on what they would recommend for vaccinations for each person individually. I think most of us were all recommended to have malaria pills, and then when we got there, we weren't quite necessarily in the forest where there was that much of a concern, but it's more to be safe than sorry. But we really encourage whoever ends up going to consult with their doctor on what's best for them. And then lodgings. So it's probably the biggest question for a lot of people who've never been to Southeast Asia is, what are the hotels and accommodations like? We actually had conveniently taken some photos of the rooms that we were staying in. And one of the nice things is every place that JP had suggested and booked for us had air conditioning, which was so beneficial for how hot it was outside sometimes. The hotels that we stayed in the larger cities, Phnom Penh and Siem Reap, they also included like a continental breakfast, which is a lot more different than what you would expect in the States. It was more than just pastries and bagels and fruit. It was omelet stations and soup stations, and it was rather nice, far more than we ever expected, and an average hotel stay per night was $35 to $45 a night. So it's very different experience than what you would get in the United States.
So we stayed in 3 main places during the trip. This is the Phnom Penh Hotel, which is the first one that we stayed in. It has nice beds and it had a pool, which is unexpected. And then, as Anissa mentioned before, there was a good little breakfast area down there where they brought out food. It was continental breakfast, and that is a good photo Anissa snapped of the view. So it was pretty nice. And then when we went to a remote village called Chuk. Just like the village, the lodging was remote as well, you could say. So we had small beds, 1 room thing, and then the bathroom. And it's what you expect in a little remote village. So.
But it wasn't bad. I would say the beds there were more comfortable to me than like some of the larger city areas.
She's crazy. But it's not bad, because when we first got there, I was like, oh, this is less than I expected, because he had undersold the first place a lot, so I expected more than what he was saying for the second one. No, but the thing is, we would literally get back late, go to sleep, and be out the next morning before we're even fully awake. So it doesn't matter the rooms. So that's not an issue.
You're there to sleep.
Yeah.
And shower.
And then we went to the third place, is Siem Reap, which that was a nicer hotel again. It had a pool, again unexpected, but then we get the bigger beds and the nicer rooms. Siem Reap's their tourist city there, and also where Angkor Wat is. And then this one had a big old restaurant in the bottom, which I say restaurant, but it's like a continental breakfast thing.
I think some of the other things to note with the hotel rooms is we do tend to try and double up or triple up in some instances depending on who's going. And like I think last year Betsy and Michael, they shared a room. They're a married couple. Jackie and I shared a room. At one point, Jackie, Amy, and I shared a room. We all had our own little twin beds in the nice hotel here. And then Jake and his mom shared a room for a portion of the trip. So, it's, again, you're there to sleep, you're there to take showers, and then you're off doing mission work. And it was such a great experience for all of us. Definitely loved being there, and so thankful we got the opportunity to share in that moment. You want to go to the next slide? So then the last item here is food. It was interesting when we were planning. JP was like, oh, it's a lot of fish, a lot of vegetables, and when in doubt, there's always rice. And then we get there, and we learned that because we were tourists, we were the guests, and they tried to bring out the more expensive things, so proteins like chicken and beef, and we actually didn't see as much fish as we had anticipated. We actually at one point were like, can we have some vegetables? Because it was a lot of meat and rice, and we're like, our group was like, we do enjoy vegetables. We're not ashamed of those. And so we ended up getting some vegetables a little later into the trip, but initially we were like, it's okay. We like the less expensive items as well. But there was a lot of great dishes that we tried. There was one night where we went to kind of like a Korean barbecue, if you will, where we sat with the Cambodian team and shared a meal. We had quite a few of those actually, and this one on the right-hand side here was there's like a dish of like ghee or butter, and Some of the locals were like, oh no, you do this, and then you brush all the meat, and then, or the vegetables, and then you cook it in that way, and it was a really fun experience. The noodle soup, kind of like pho in Vietnam. They have a version in Cambodia. I apologize because I cannot pronounce it, but equally delicious with chicken or beef. There's the noodles and the vegetables. Some of the other dishes we had, if you want to go to the next slide.
So as we see here, a lot of the food is going to be family style. We did have some parts where you could get your own, but a lot of it's going to be family style. And especially here with the Korean barbecue, I guess you could call it. And then also we're going to have a lot of different variety of food. So we had that.
Fish and milk.
Fish and milk.
It's the national dish of Cambodia.
Yeah. We have the soups, the pho type thing that Anissa was talking about. And here we have some more seafood. We got the crab there. So there's a lot of variety of food. But then we also had some fancy food like that and the rolls. But then there's still Westerner food if that's what you really want. And we had that a couple times.
Pretty sure Jake had a burger in every city.
Pretty much.
What's the next one?
Can I chime in?
Oh yeah.
Just for anybody, Jake has a nut allergy, so we couldn't serve, so he can't eat. And, yeah, because it's being recorded. Oh, sorry. With his nut allergy, their organization, Skills, they got JP to have a card translated for Jake. So anywhere he ate, if there's a language barrier, he could hand that to the server to let them know that he had this nut allergy. I have to be honest, it wasn't as successful as we would hoped. So I was a taste tester to eat it before he would eat, because a lot of times there was peanuts or other nuts in the dishes. But if anybody has any of those kind of concerns, they preemptively can address some of that and beware, but be cautious. Yeah, but it worked out fine.
Yeah, don't be scared, but be cautious.
So the transportation, I know we touched on this a little bit. We had our own little private bus. It was actually fun. There was one night where we took the Cambodian translators with us, and we went to dinner in a nearby town. And they're really big into karaoke, and so we had a karaoke night on the bus, which was a lot of fun. But the nice thing with the bus is that everything was secure. Not much more to say about it. I mean, it was very clean, it was efficient, and like I said, it was ours for the week that we were there. Jake, you want to click to the next slide? Oh. And like I said, we also take airfare. Obviously, we cannot drive to Cambodia from California. So the flights, there are a lot of different options for flights. Typically, you'll see layovers in Vietnam, Singapore, Korea, Japan. There wasn't a lot of options for Japan, and then I think Taiwan was the other location next to Vietnam, which was the one we ended up flying through. Vietnam seemed to be one of the closer locations for the layover, and also, based on cost. Cost was a huge driving factor for the flight decisions.
So here's the tuk-tuk, which is what you get a lot around there. Did you mention that? No. Okay. So this was a bigger one. It had two parts to it, but a lot of them were just kind of more connected. And tuk-tuks you can get pretty much anywhere you want. Most people are driving around on motorbikes, but we would either take these or take the bus. They're super cheap, and this way, if we all wanted to do something different, we didn't have to have the bus drop us off all the places. We could just all go get a tuk-tuk and take us to wherever we wanted to go. And then here was the bus that we had rented out for the whole week. Like Anissa said, it was bigger than we needed, but it was nice having all the space. And then we took this thing for hours and hours.
Yeah, our longest trip was going from Phnom Penh to Siem Reap, and that was about a 7 to 8 hour drive. So it was nice to have the space on the bus so people could nap along that that lengthy drive. It's kind of like driving from San Jose to San Diego, for anyone who's done that down the 5. But for the most part, it's getting us from point A to point B, so taking us from hotels to the camps and back. And then joining us. So, as you know, we are looking for a team of 7 to 8 people. It's a great number that we had last year. We had 7, and we definitely think 8 would be a great possibility, great opportunity as well. The way we should organize VBS is similar to a Holy Cross VBS for anyone who's participated, attended, taught at, where we have morning devotionals. And then for morning devotionals, we break up into classes and we talk about our lessons. So as Jake mentioned earlier, we had 2 different lessons last year of parables, one on the mustard seed, one on the lost sheep. We broke up into the classes, talked about those, and then we had a snack time where we were introduced to foods that necessarily weren't in restaurants. And one of the great things about it too is we got to try a lot of different fruits that we had never tried before in the States. One of those being a jackfruit. That's more common there than it is here. I know you can get them in some locations here. And then for those who don't know, Jake's name is very similar to the word banana in the Cambodian language. And so the kids like to nickname him Banana. And one of the days we ended up with bananas as a snack. So it was very fun.
So here's how you can join us in Cambodia. We have a commitment form over there, so if you are really interested, it's right here. So we have the commitment form, and you can fill out your name, just general information, contact information, then just some questions. How'd you hear about this? Have you had any previous experience? Do you speak any other languages than English? And then at the bottom, it's a question that says, what can you help with? What are you interested in helping with? So we have, do you want to help lead devotionals, be a crafts assistant? Do you want to help with music? All those are options.
And then there's just some other additional information. Oh, sorry. There's additional information in here too of like, your spiritual beliefs, what you want to do, where you want to serve. And even if you don't want to, if you're not able to attend the mission itself, there is opportunity for other ways to serve in this as well.
And we are going to be holding a follow-up meeting for people who are actually interested in joining us to Cambodia. That's going to be, we don't have a date confirmed yet, but it's probably going to be late May to early June, we're thinking. And like Anissa said, we're looking for a team of roughly 7 to 8 people would be the best case scenario.
How many do you have now?
We have 2. We have me and Amy and then some other maybes. So now we're going to talk about how you can support us without going to Cambodia, all the way over there. So, obviously number one, prayers. That's the best thing that you can do to help us, because we need a lot of assistance to make this happen. You can donate VBS supplies. We're going to have a list on the website of what VBS supplies we need, because last time we needed glue sticks, scissors, modeling clay, all that, but we don't know exactly what we need yet because we haven't figured out the VBS lessons. So as we get further into the planning process, we'll figure out the materials that we need, and it'll be on the website, again, holycrosslosgatos.com/Cambodia. We'll put it on there when we figure out what we need, and we'll let you guys know. We need help with craft preparation. Again, we'll figure this out when we get the VBS lessons done, but last time there was a lot of cutting work and folding work and gluing to be done here before we went over.
Yeah, I would say part of our lessons learned is having kind of all the crafts prepped individually, like in little baggies. I think one of the things that Karen helped us with friendship bracelets was cutting all the string and putting it into little bags and kind of having it already started, because we do have such limited time. One of the things with the VBS is that even though it's a holiday week for us, they're still actively in school. So all the VBS sessions are sandwiched into the morning and then early afternoon. So we had like an early morning session and a late morning session. And that was kind of how we ended up with 160 kids per day, essentially. And having some of that stuff pre-organized into little packets helped streamline the efforts of the kids being able to put crafts together and not feeling like they didn't get to finish anything.
And then we could also use help just raising awareness about the trip. If you know someone who'd be interested in going or helping out in any way, let them know. If you think of anyone who may be interested in supporting us financially, that also is a big help.
And say there are extra brochures in the narthex, so feel free to take some and pass them to people you might find to be interested in going.
Yeah. And more. So now we're in the Q&A section, and before we do this, if you want to see more, you can go to our website there. That'll take you to the Cambodia page. If you want to support us financially, that will also take us there, and that is the same QR code that's on the little online offering cards in the pew. And this QR code to take you to the website's also on the brochure. It's at the bottom of the middle section of the front, I think. So Q&A, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them.
Then I'll jump at once.
You've done a good job of covering.
I think the last little note is we did record this, so for anyone who wasn't able to make it, feel free to share with them that this is going to be on the website as well. So if they have questions, they could always reach out.
Yeah, it'll go on the YouTube and on the website. So, yeah. Yes.
Well, thank you, Jake and Anissa. Very nicely done. And again, on an individual basis, well, Jackie went, Julie went, and in terms of, firsthand experience as well. And so we'll see how God's going to move this along. So, okay. Thank you.
Well, actually, before we depart, we could go over this, the schedule.
I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I mean, just here, you hold it, I'll talk. Yeah, so this kind of gives you a breakdown of each day of last year's trip. It's a very high-level breakdown where we were for breakfast, where we went midday, lunchtime, dinner, late evening, whether we were at a VBS site, a tourist site, a meal restaurant, the hotel, debriefing sessions. It just gives you kind of a rough idea of what to expect daily. And then VBS sessions are a little bit different. This isn't as broken down as the minute by minute, but it's just more of like a general day by day.
Yeah, and then we have the draft budget, but that's also self-explanatory.
And that was last year's budget.
Yeah, all that's
Yeah.
for last year.
Yeah. So you're building a budget now for this year, right? So, okay, well, ongoing prayers and encouragements, and we'll let the Lord lead as He's done in the past. So, okay, let's close with prayer. Dear Jesus, we ask that your word would be spread as we celebrate your presence in our world, and ask that on your ongoing blessing, leading, and guiding for our Cambodia mission trip and team. Amen.